This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
You're listening to Campus Killings, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, Missing Persons, DNA ID, Scene of the Crime, Zodiac Speaking, Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Below the Surface, and Killer Communications. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Hi, Amy. Today's case was suggested by our listener, Clara Y., who is a huge fan of the podcast. She sent us a couple of case suggestions, but the one that really stuck out to me was Mia Henderson's murder at the University of Arizona. There's a lot of compelling discussion points for what happened in this case, and I really look forward to unpacking some of the potential theories on how this tragic crime unfolded, but we'll save that for later in the episode. One of the things that makes this case interesting, Amy, is that the perpetrator doesn't really fit some of the normal patterns we usually see. In researching this case, the best source of information came from a very well-done podcast hosted by the University of Arizona itself. The podcast is called Wildcat Crime. It ran for 2 seasons, and it was hosted by UA undergrad student Vanessa Ontiveros. Vanessa's research was fabulous, and as a UA student herself, she brought an important and unique perspective to the case. The bulk of today's episode comes directly from Vanessa's work, so I highly recommend checking out her podcast. We'll have a link to it in our show notes. And even though we've actually covered the University of Arizona before, we did in episode 24, the murder of Professor Thomas Mixner, I wanted to share a more detailed history about how the university began than what we previously covered. As a refresher, UA was founded by a land grant in 1885, but being given the right to build a university wasn't exactly what the people of Tucson were hoping for. At the time, Arizona was in the process of becoming a state, and Tucson wanted to be the capital city. However, due to political jockeying, they were basically told they would not be the capital, and the land grant to build the university was their consolation prize. Not to mention, the grant required the city to provide a minimum of 40 acres of undeveloped land to break ground on the first building. In retaliation, the wealthy landowners of the city refused to give up any of their land for the grant, stalling the whole process. But one of the city's booksellers, a man named Jacob Mansfield, felt it was extremely important for the new Western Territory to have a university. So he did what you and I might do. He simply hounded the 3 wealthiest landowners in Tucson, who happened to be a saloon owner and 2 professional gamblers. Gotta love that. Over a 6-month period, Mansfield would essentially wait outside their offices, follow them around the city, and generally make a nuisance of himself until they finally agreed to donate the necessary acreage to make him go away.
That's amazing.
Apparently, it pays to be persistent, as we probably know. A spot was selected about 3 miles outside the city limits. However, the land they donated under duress didn't technically belong to them. It was the ancestral home of the indigenous O'odham and Yaqui tribes who'd been kicked off their land to make way for industrial farming. That stolen land has become an integral part of how the university understands its own history, and they've spent a huge portion of the 21st century righting that wrong. So one of the ways they've made amends is by providing scholarships to indigenous students from the surrounding reservations. And then in 2020, the university launched NAATE, or the Native American Advancement and Tribal Engagement Office. Since its inception, they've created a land acknowledgement statement, provided several programs honoring the 22 indigenous tribes of Arizona, and most recently in 2025, they opened a micro-campus to serve the local Pascua Yaqui tribes. But 17 years earlier, in 2007, UA was in their preliminary stages of attracting indigenous students, and Mia Henderson was one of them. A member of the Navajo Nation, Mia Janelle Henderson grew up in Tuba City on Arizona's Navajo Reservation, and she was described as the star of her town. We've seen this in so many of the students we talk about on this show, but Mia really was the perfect go-getter, college-bound teenager. She was the captain of her high school softball team, a straight-A student who was a member of the National Honor Society, and one of the top 10 students in her graduating class.
Well, she had a lot going for her.
She did have a lot going for her. She also took her indigenous heritage and family ties very seriously, as she often made social media posts honoring her mother and her grandmother, which I thought was very sweet. Those that knew her best described her as loving her reservation, loving her culture, and loving her family. So much so that she wanted to be a biology major so that she could become a doctor and study Native American genetics and sports medicine. When she graduated from Tuba City High School, Mia received the highest honor her school offered, which was a $7,000 scholarship to study at the University of Arizona. In addition, she was also one of the 25 students selected by the university to work on a 7-week biomedical research project, which I think is really incredible coming out the gates.
What was the project actually about? Did she have a particular passion in that area?
She did. It's really interesting. So Mia's personal project focused around her love for genetics, but spending the course studying albinism in Native Americans, so those who were albinos as Native Americans, which is...
Was there a higher incidence?
I don't know. I have no idea, but
That's really interesting.
It's so unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was such a go-getter that her friends and family often called her Mighty Mia. She chose to be photographed for her senior picture in traditional Navajo attire. You can see in the picture just how vibrant she was. The photo is totally worth it, so have a look. I mean, these photos sometimes make the murders seem all the more senseless, but I still encourage people to look. And though dorming at UA would be the first time Mia was away from her family, she was really excited about this new chapter of her life. While UA had not yet created their current innovative Native American programs when Mia was going to school, they did have a freshman retention program specifically for indigenous students called first-year scholars. This program provided select high-achieving Native American freshmen with a special themed community that was designed to help them adjust to college life, make friends, and transition to being away from home for the first time. Amy, does this maybe sound like a program that we also have at FDU?
Are you referring to learning communities?
Indeed, I am. So we have learning communities, and the academic theory behind them is that providing freshmen a peer-based support system in their first year helps adjustment to college life and creates built-in friendships that essentially provide the foundation for the next 4 years. So we do have freshman learning communities as well. And this also, in turn, we know helps retain first-year students. It sets them up for higher grades and better community engagement all around. So the first-year scholars were paired with like-minded freshmen and housed in the Graham-Greenlee dorm. Their themed community was called Autumn Key, or People's House, and its mission was to provide a welcoming, comfortable, supportive living and learning environment for Native American students. It hoped to affirm their cultural identity while emphasizing education, culture, empowerment, and community. So when Mia met her roommate Galareka, or Reka Harrison, the two should have gotten along very well. Reka was also Navajo and had grown up in Chinle, and like Mia, she excelled in sports. I thought this was pretty cool. She was actually an avid rodeo star who specialized in breakaway roping, a talent for which she received the Rookie of the Year award in 2005 by the All-Indian Rodeo Cowboy Association.
Wow. I don't even understand what that means. Breakaway? Like, do you understand what that refers to?
Oh, well, I thought it was actually like when you're roping, you're trying to rope in the bull.
Maybe. I don't know. It's an area I know so little about.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it either. I just thought roping, I just thought the idea of her being a rodeo star sounded kind of cool. But then again, now I go back on that, I'm like, I also think the rodeo is kind of cruel, so maybe I'm not sure about that. But I don't know. I just thought, wow, these are kind of talented young women. Reka was also academically gifted and had received a full scholarship to UA. Also, like Mia, she was interested in the sciences and wanted to work in healthcare as a pharmacist.
Oh, it sounds like these two have a lot in common.
Yes, they do, but shared interests and backgrounds couldn't make up for what seemed to be major personality differences. So while Mia was outgoing and made friends quickly, Reka was definitely more introverted. And she had come to UA already feeling awkward after misunderstanding exactly what her scholarship paid for. So Reka had assumed that she wouldn't have to pay for anything. And when she arrived to move-in day and essentially first day, she found out that that was not the case. Her scholarship paid for her tuition and for her dorm, but she had to provide her own books, laptop, food, and other expenses. Now,
I feel like that's customary, I think, with scholarships, right? They usually just cover tuition and board.
That's funny.
Tuition and room.
So I don't know much about the scholarships anymore, but there are some full scholarships that cover books, that cover everything. And even if they don't, she might just have misunderstood what full scholarship meant. Either way, she only had $200 in cash to get her through that semester. And she was too embarrassed to call her family or anyone else for that matter about her mistake. So she began skipping meals and replacing them with diet pills to make her money stretch. Not a good start. Between her mistake and feeling extremely homesick and shy, Reka answered Mia's cues for friendship with curt one-word answers. I don't think there was anything warm and fuzzy, and according to some reports, Mia took this to mean that Reka didn't really like her, and it was reported that she would often make disgusted faces at Reka if they passed on campus. Now, I don't know if this is like disgusted or just awkward or just, avoiding faces, but the two clearly were not off to a good start, unfortunately. The tension between them upset Reka, who didn't understand why her roommate was acting so weird. So it seems like, these perceived awkward encounters on both sides led to this growing tension. But where most students would either work it out, ask for a new roommate, maybe go to dean of students, Reka, her response was that she did something criminal instead. When her cash ran out a few weeks into the semester, she stole Mia's UAID, checkbook, and Social Security card, which she used to take $500 out of Mia's account.
Oh, I'm assuming she was caught. How soon after was she?
Well, okay, listen. At first, Mia had no idea what had happened. But on the night of August 28th, when she was hanging out in her dorm with two of her friends, Reka came in and dropped off her wallet and a few other things before leaving for another friend's room. which isn't necessarily odd. However, sticking out of Rika's wallet that she had dropped off was a photo of Mia. Mia kind of looked over, found this odd since they were clearly not on good terms, but when she went to see why Rika had a picture of her, she realized that this wasn't a picture. It was her UA ID card, which she obviously didn't realize she was missing. And folded around it, she found her social security card. Now, obviously furious, Mia took the cards back, and in doing so, she found out that Rika had 2 of Mia's checks in her wallet, one filled out for $1,000 and another one for $2,000. I kind of don't know how long she thought she could pull this off for, but Mia immediately called campus police, and after taking a report, the officer found Rika on campus. Rika admitted to him that not only had she stolen Mia's ID cards and had used them in Mia's checkbook to cash a check for $500, but she had just recently stolen another student's wallet from the study hall room.
I wonder why she gave that information.
She might have panicked. This is a girl who, in case you want to know, does not have a criminal history. She gave it to the officer, explaining that she intended to use the students' ID cards to buy school supplies. Maybe she thought she could talk her way out of it because she was desperate. And interestingly, Rika wasn't arrested or charged with anything at that time. But the officer brought Rika back to the dorm, where he also brought the 2 women together and tried to get them to work out the issue. I'm unclear as to why this would be, aside from the fact that she's a young girl. She's committed 2 fairly serious crimes, or, semi-serious crimes, and he's now bringing them back together for an awkward situation. This officer also suggested to Mia that she should stay in a friend's room for the night and take her valuables with her. According to trial testimony, while Mia was spending the night in her friend's room, she received a text from Rika asking for forgiveness, but Mia was not ready for that. She told her friend that she was going to press charges, and she felt that Rika needed to be dismissed from the first-year scholars program. And Mia meant it, as the next day she filed complaints with the dean of students, the dorm housing administrator, and the first-year scholars office. She also went to the housing director and demanded a room change, which is totally appropriate. But get this, the director told Mia it would take about 2 weeks to find her a new room, since the school had what was called a 4-person agreement policy, in which 4 people had to agree in front of the housing director to switch rooms.
This sounds like a safety concern. They should be putting her up in temporary housing while they figure it out.
Absolutely. I think so as well. Mia did not think this was a viable option, so the housing director told her the only other option was that Mia's friend could take Rika's place in their room and Rika could stay in the friend's room. I mean, this also doesn't seem like a viable option. It seems like the housing department issue is I see 2 problems already. One, that the police officer brought them back together and thought this was a way to work out a crime, and 2, that the housing policies do not protect students in conflict. Either way, by most accounts, Mia spent the rest of the week in her friend's room while Rika continued to reside in their original room before both women went home over the Labor Day weekend. For Mia's family, it would be the last time they would see her alive.
And now, a brief word from our sponsors.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
On the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, Rika and her friend Yolanda, whom she knew from the rodeo circuit, took a 7-hour drive to Window Rock for a rodeo show in the northern part of Arizona. During this long drive, Rika told Yolanda that she was having issues with her roommate, and she thought that Mia was stealing from her. Over the course of the drive, Rika asked questions like, what happens to people who steal? She also told Yolanda that she'd learned someone in her dorm was wanting to, in her words, commit suicide, and she claimed she'd seen this on MySpace. At one point, their conversation turned to the show CSI, and Rika asked if Yolanda thought fingerprints could still be detected if someone wore gloves. Now, these might seem like odd questions, but Yolanda figured they were just making conversation over a long course. I mean, this is a 14-hour drive, and so maybe the questions weren't so strange. She'd also later claimed that she tried to offer Rika advice on how to handle her issues with Mia, since the problem seemed to be typical of freshman roommates. When they returned to Tucson, Rika asked Yolanda to stop at the Target so she could get some school supplies, to which Yolanda complied. I was thinking, gosh, that's a long trip afterwards. You're going to stop at Target?
You could never be too tired for Target, though.
Well, you could never, Amy. I know how much time you spend at Target.
Yes.
But Yolanda was surprised when all Rika selected was a kitchen knife and a pack of gum. Rika said it was for a class, and when she didn't elaborate, Yolanda drove Rika back to UA on the evening of September 4th. Rika went to the library, typed something on the computer, printed it, and put it in her bag. Around 2:30 a.m. on September 5th, Rika texted her friend Stacy, who lived next door to her in Graham-Greenlee, asking if Mia was still in their room, and if she was she awake? But Stacy didn't answer because it's 2:30 in the morning. So Rika went to their room where she found Mia sleeping on the bed. Rika quietly placed the recently printed paper on Mia's desk before sitting on her bed and staring at Mia's sleeping form. While she stared, she couldn't stop thinking about how awful Mia had been to her and how much trouble she was going to be in when Mia pressed charges. She didn't know how she was going to break it to her family or what she was going to do. After several hours of contemplation, she knew that what she needed was for Mia to go away. So she silently removed the kitchen knife from her bag, stood over Mia, and plunged the 8-inch blade down into Mia's neck. But Mia woke up immediately and fought back, rolling off the bed and screaming for help. The two tumbled around the room as Rika continuously stabbed Mia at every opening she got.
There was someone else sleeping in the room?
No, Mia was alone in the room.
Oh, okay.
At some point, Mia finally crumpled beneath Rika, but she didn't stop stabbing right away. When the fight was finally out of her, Rika realized what she'd done. She rushed out of the room, covered in blood and screaming for help as other students called 911. First responders found Rika crying hysterically in the hallway with a large cut down her leg. She sobbed out something about an attack in her room, and when they went in, they found Mia crumpled in the fetal position and absolutely covered in blood. Paramedics rushed both women to the hospital, but while Rika only required some stitches, Mia was pronounced dead at 6:32 a.m. It was abundantly clear that Mia had been murdered, and unbeknownst to Rika, during the few hours she spent in the hospital getting her leg stitched, detectives had investigated the crime scene. In it, they found the printed piece of paper she'd left on Mia's desk.
I've been waiting to know what this says.
Well, get this, it was a suicide note from Mia, claiming she was taking her own life over the intense guilt she felt for accusing Rika of stealing. Investigators knew immediately it was a fake since her autopsy had been conducted almost immediately after her death and 90% of Mia's wounds were in her back. I'm really glad that these detectives didn't dismiss it like the ones in Ellen Ray Greenberg's case is what I thought.
It's funny you say that. That's my reconsidered episode for today.
Okay, well, there it is. So their radar turned directly to Rika, who agreed to answer questions after being released from the hospital. But I'm sure you won't be surprised that she did not tell them the truth. Instead, she claimed that she'd hung out with friends until 2 a.m. and then went back to her dorm. When she arrived, the room was dark, but she sensed Mia was not alone. She could see the outline of a man's figure by the window. The man threw Rika on the bed next to Mia, and over the next 3 hours, he talked to them about how he wanted to die and he wanted to kill them. Yes, I'm going to keep going.
This is a very unnecessarily elaborate lie.
Uh-huh. She described him as thin and wearing all black with a hat so she couldn't see his face in the dark room. He boxed them in so they couldn't get out the door and proffered a knife to them, telling them if they didn't kill him, he would kill them instead. When Mia refused to take the knife, Rika claimed the man went into a rage and attacked them anyway. Rika escaped and tried to run for the door to get help, but the man slashed her leg as she ran screaming into the hall. This is the story. Well, this is story number 1. Investigators punched holes in this story immediately, as you can probably imagine. With only a 4-minute response between the 911 call and the first police on the scene, there could not have been time for the man to have escaped from their second-story dorm room without being seen by anyone. And they'd already taken statements from all the students who rushed out of the dorm rooms to meet Rika, who was screaming. The room had also been full of blood, but there were no footprints leading out of it. Not to mention, detectives had already been told by the hospital staff that Rika claimed that Mia had attacked her while they were stitching her up. So she's already told a different story at the hospital. They pressed her again to tell the truth. This time, she pinned everything on Mia. She claimed they'd been at odds from the very beginning, but then Mia started stealing her money. And at first, it was just small amounts, $30 or so. But after Rika started hiding her cash, she claimed that Mia threatened her with a gun and instructed Rika to take her money and UAID to buy an iPod and a textbook. Rika said she became Mia's, quote, servant after this encounter, to the point that Mia forced her to forge and cash 3 checks in the following days. There's more. Hold on.
Does she really think they're going to buy this?
While Rika said she did forge and cash the first one for $500, she couldn't make herself cash the second 2 for $1,000 and $2,000. And she knew Mia would retaliate, which is why she sent her that text, "I'm sorry, forgive me." After the Labor Day weekend, she returned to her room at 2 a.m. and said Mia taunted her for not forging the checks, the big checks. And then she quickly escalated and came at Rika with a knife, which is how the struggle began. What on earth? I don't even know where this story comes from. I mean, this is like absurdity, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure investigators thought so too.
Oh, they poked holes in this story too. If any of this was true, why had Rika told the UAPD that she had stolen Mia's ID and social security card? But more importantly, investigators pointed out that Mia had no motive for stealing Rika's money. She wasn't having an issue affording college life. She was from an affluent family. She had the scholarship, and she didn't.
And Rika had no money anyway.
Yes. She didn't need Rika to forge checks that were already in her name. Also, remember she said Mia had a gun? Well, there was no gun known to be registered to Mia or found. And detectives had found her faked suicide note. They asked Rika how someone would commit suicide and turn up with multiple stab wounds to their back. So Rika changed the story again. In this story, the last one, she had killed Mia, but Mia had started it. She had taunted Rika when she came in the room, threatening that she'd be ousted from the first scholars program. She'd never make it through college. Then Mia attacked her, and she'd had no choice but to defend herself. Well, these are the many stories. Rika was arrested for first-degree murder, and the judge had set her bail at $500,000.
We'll return after a brief word from our sponsors.
The case went to trial. Evidence from the scene and the autopsy clearly did not support Rika's last story. So she pleaded not guilty due to self-defense. As we said, her last story was that Mia attacked her. Over the course of 6 days in September of 2008, the jury was presented with witness testimony about Rika's theft, her buying of the kitchen knife, and her taped confession with investigators. The medical examiner also testified about the state of Mia's body following the attack. In this testimony, he revealed that Mia had been stabbed over 23 times during the attack, 15 of which were in the back. 7 of the wounds were fatal, puncturing both lungs, her spleen, right kidney, and her liver. Other witnesses included several of Mia's friends who testified about the theft and how it was Rika who had stolen Mia's IDs, not the other way around. While the defense did their best to point out potential mistakes in the investigation and their crosses of witnesses, as they usually do, Rika's taped confession and the brutality of the attack was very difficult to undermine. They didn't call any witnesses. Again, they were trying to point out mistakes in the investigation. Their only angle, really, aside from the mistakes, was just to argue against premeditation. In their closing statements, they tried to show that Rika stabbing Mia so many times after putting such effort into trying to stage a suicide did not show premeditation, but simply desperation and panic in a split-second decision. This story, however, did not sway the jury, who came back after only 3.5 hours with guilty for first-degree murder, forgery, and stealing someone's identity. On November 25th, 2008, Rika's defense tried to apply mitigating factors for a lesser sentence, including the possibility of temporary insanity.
They're just trying everything.
Well, of course.
I guess they have to. That's their job.
The defense claimed that Rika had a psychological evaluation the day prior to the hearing, and she was found to have been under intense pressure while at the university, and this caused her to snap. But like the trial, this did not get Rika any leniency. The judge sentenced her to life without the possibility of parole, since the prosecution did not seek the penalty, which is still available in Arizona. In her sentencing, Judge Nanette Warner told Rika, "You killed in a very violent way," and that was the biggest reason for her decision to not offer the possibility of parole after 25 years. She was 19 at the time of her sentencing, and she did not have any prior criminal history. She started off with a violent murder. But while Mia's family hoped that justice was done and they could try to piece their lives back together, Rika's story wasn't over. Why is that? Well, as they always do, in 2013, the appellate court granted her appeal on the grounds of ineffective counsel. This is rare.
That's so
we
rare.
don't see this happen a lot. Her appeal stated that her original defense team had not appropriately presented her tumultuous family background and medical history. So, reports stated that she had been diagnosed with extreme anxiety as a teenager due to domestic violence happening in her home. Now, it's not clear whether this was directed at her or she witnessed it, but that this should have been presented by the defense.
But that would be what, during sentencing or during, like, as a mitigating factor?
I think this probably would have been as a mitigating factor. Or perhaps you might have argued that instead of self-defense or as part of self-defense, they'd say she has quicker reactions. She's
like heightened arousal.
Yeah, I think any number of ways. The point was they never presented this in any of the phases. Her appeal asked for resentencing, and it was granted. So, much to the despair and anger of Mia's family, a judge resentenced Rika to life again, but with the possibility of parole after 25 years.
Okay. I don't hate that. I know some people might, but she was very young, and I think 25 years, that gives her time to really rehabilitate and be remorseful and redeem herself.
Yep.
And so, we'll see what she does. I'm not saying I think she definitely deserves to get out, but at least it gives her the incentive to work towards something.
Right. Or we know certainly that people can do things with their time that make them redeemable. I did see some reports that she's continuing her education in prison, but she hasn't made any public statements or remorse or apology that I could find. Before we move on to Mia's legacy, I also want to take a minute to discuss potential reasons Rika may have resorted to such a violent crime. Since she's not a typical candidate for this kind of murder, this is very atypical. She did suffer from anxiety, domestic violence, and family instability, but she was also an excellent student, a star. She had been selected by UA to be a member of a fairly prestigious freshman program. And while she wasn't as outgoing as Mia, she did have friends both in her hometown and at UA. She had no prior criminal record, not even a shoplifting charge or a speeding ticket. She wasn't into drugs. There was no excessive alcohol use. So she started with a petty theft and then jumped to a murder. And it seems that that's a very steep jump. Any thoughts on how to explain maybe that or that angle or why that's so fascinating?
It's rare to see an escalation from petty crimes or nonviolent crimes to something like that kind of vicious murder, especially in somebody that young for it to happen so fast. Yeah, this is definitely one of those rare cases that doesn't fit the mold.
No, desperation and real panic can really cause people to make leaps or jumps that you wouldn't expect. This is like one of those extraordinary things that happens to almost ordinary people, you think.
And also, she was young, so her brain's not fully developed.
Yes.
So, instant gratification, not good problem solving.
Right. All of the above. Well, let's get back to Mia. How has she been remembered? The day following the murder, UA brought in a Navajo medicine man to perform a ritual cleansing of Mia's dorm room in a show of solemn respect to her memory, as well as to reinvigorate it as a spiritually clean space. UA's multicultural office explained this to be an integral part of the healing process for both the school and the Native students in the first-year scholars program. Tuba City also hosted a memorial to Mia on the softball field where she had played all of her games and won several awards for her athleticism. Over 200 people showed up to light candles and tell stories about how she'd affected their community. She was buried in the family cemetery at Senestee in San Juan, New Mexico, where she is forever 18 years old. Her parents sued UA in a wrongful death suit, but in 2008, but there are no public records on how it concluded. I was disturbed to see that because I hope that the lawsuit focuses on how they handled this housing situation. And I do believe they are at fault. I also believe the police were at fault here for improperly handling a report of a crime that was credible. While Mia's murder devastated her family and friends, the horrific way in which she died made virtually no impact, it seemed, on UA's policies and procedures. So immediately following her murder, UA's Office of Residence Life reanalyzed their staff training methods, and RAs were asked to start monitoring their residents for any changes in their schedules, such as if they stopped going to class or didn't seem to be in their room. This does not seem to address the root cause of the problem, and that's all we could find. I don't like this. I think this is a poor response to a poor policy. Aside from the Navajo medicine man ritually cleansing her room and UA's Student Services Center providing counseling for students who felt affected by the trauma, the university viewed Mia's murder as specific and an isolated incident that policies could not have stopped. Disagree. However, the people of Tuba City and Chinle did not see this as an isolated incident. As we've discussed in other episodes, Indigenous women experience murder, sexual assault, and violent crime at much higher rates than the national average, and they are 16 times more likely to be murdered than white women. But the fact that Mia was murdered by not just another woman, but a woman for her own tribe was almost incomprehensible, especially since Rika was described by everyone who knew her as a good kid. She was an honor student, a rodeo star with lots of friends, and hopes and dreams for her career in pharmacology. She'd never shown a history of violence. Not to mention, violence went against the Navajo way. As an officer with the Navajo Youth Development told local media following the murder, the whole Navajo community was reeling with questions about how this horrible incident had even happened. But the why behind Rika's fatal decision on the night of September 5th, 2007 has never really been answered. Rika has never spoken to the press, and she's never shown any public remorse. Even during victim impact statements, her only condolence to Mia's family was to say, quote, "I just want everyone to know that we all suffer." We can only hope that she has shown more remorse in private and will continue to understand the impact of her actions. While we might not truly know why she decided to take Mia's life, I do know, unfortunately, there are no memorials or scholarships in Mia's name to help remember her at this point. So I guess my hope in choosing this episode is that it helps memorialize the beautiful person Mia was, and it shares her story with a wider audience. Thank you so much for listening today, and we hope you'll join us on the next episode of Campus Killings.
Before we go today, if you'd like to support Campus Killings, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts.
Your subscription will get you VIP access to all the shows on the network that not only includes hundreds of episodes of ad-free listening, but also bonus content and early access to episodes.
For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting this show in the process.
Head over to Apple Podcasts and search for either Campus Killings or AbJack, and you can start your subscription with a free trial.
Your support is greatly appreciated.
Campus Killings is hosted by Dr. Meghan Sachs and Dr. Amy Shlosberg, with research and writing by Abagail Belcastro. It's produced by Mike Morford of AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to follow Campus Killings on social media. You can find Campus Killings on Twitter with the handle @CampusKillings or on Facebook at facebook.com/CampusKillings. You can also visit the show's homepage at campuskillings.com. Be sure to tune in every other Saturday for new episodes of Campus Killings.